Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about effects. So one of the reasons why I actually chose this particular template for us compared to other templates on the market that were out there was the ability to add effects or to add changes in tone on the fly. Really feel is best done on this template. So when I say the word effects, what I mean is these are sound modifiers to a traditional instrument that make them have different types of sonic characteristics that you would only get if you applied particular effects. So I'm going to walk you through the effects section on this template so you can get ideas to how and why and when you might want to use some of these effects. So the effects section are these knobs here at the top. So these circular knobs, there's a total of 8 of them, and they are all defined by what they do. So what I'd recommend to you is when you pull up your template, I would really recommend that your template looks something like this. You want to make sure that your piano tone is all the way on, your synth tone is all the way on, and everything is really pulled off unless you really would like to use it. So just to double check when you're pulling up your template that it looks something like this, and then you can modify things from there. So in this particular example, we're going to be playing with two different things. We're going to be playing with a grand piano, show you how pianos and keyboards are affected by these particular effects, and then I'm going to show you a pad and a synth, and that's going to be affected in other ways with these effects. So let's first talk about the grand piano. This applies to any type of keyboard. So if it's a Rhodes, a digital Rhodes, maybe it's an organ, these particular effects are tied to keyboard type instruments. And then some of these effects are tied to synth type instruments. So let's take a look at this first one. So in the very top left corner, you're going to see a knob that says piano tone. Really, that could be labeled keyboard tone. So again, for any keyboard. But let me show you what it does. So when we play the keyboard, right, that's your traditional, just normal sound. We may want to mute that or have it be a little bit darker. So what it's doing is when you're turning it to the left, it's actually filtering out some of the brighter frequencies. So now let's hear how that same progression might sound if I was muting it. So nice and warm. You know, that can be very, very useful as we're maybe behind a pastor or it's a very quiet moment. We don't always want our tone to be bright and just jarring, right? Sometimes we want that tone to be soft and quiet and introspective. Right? All right, so that's the piano tone knob. Let's take a look next at the piano verb. So in that same scenario, let's just say we want to have maybe a little bit quieter piano, but then we want to add a little bit of space or a little bit of room to this piano. We can turn on the piano verb, which is basically just a reverb. So let's listen to what the difference is between a piano without reverb and a piano with reverb. Got that trail, right? You hear the tone just kind of falling behind the keys that you're pressing, has some room. It just makes it sound big. So I would really recommend that you consider, playing with the verb at times to really give it like a nice, just atmospheric way about playing that piano in just different environments. Okay, so those first two knobs, so you have the piano tone, first knob, the piano verb is the second knob. We're going to skip past the next two, which is pad, verb, and shimmer. And we're going to go to delay 1, delay 2, and the compressor. So the delays are designed to be turned on by these buttons by the master volume. So you see the master volume right here, and you're going to see that I am clicking on and off the delay 1, delay 2. So there's a time delay and there is a ping pong delay. So there are two different types of delays. These delays apply to your keyboard. So an example of why we might want to use that is we're playing maybe a song that has a piano with a built-in kind of timed gallop feel to it. I'm going to play these so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But some of the songs that we play might have like an echoing piano sound that you might want to copy and mirror. So let's do this first one. So first you have to turn it on, delay 1, and then you have to turn the knob to actually play the delay. All right, so you can kind of hear that echo effect. So that is your time delay in delay 1. Let's listen to the delay number 2. Right, that's a little bit more galloping in nature. So this first delay, this one right here, this is going to be more like your standard eighth note delay. This is like your dotted eighth note delay, essentially. So that's the two delays that you can apply to any keyboard sound. The next thing you can apply to a keyboard is a compressor. So I'm going to play this, and the best way I can describe it is it basically takes the keyboard and makes it almost at the same volume every time you're hitting it. It really punches through the mix. Having a slightly compressed piano is a very common thing in worship because you want that tone to just punch through the mix. So I'm going to play without the compressor, then we'll put a little bit of compressor on it. So that compressor is really it's hitting it hard. It hits the keys hard, and that's how it punches through the mix. So if you're trying to punch through, I would definitely add a little bit of compressor to your keys playing. Okay, so far we've covered piano tone. That's going to cover the brightness and darkness of it. Piano reverb. It's going to give it the space. We've covered two different types of delays: the eighth note delay and the dotted eighth delay, and we've covered the compressor, which helps us punch through the mix. Now let's talk about the other three. So the other three effects are specifically around your synth and pad type sounds. So the one that's going to be the most important to you, we're going to start at the very right. This is the one that's labeled synth tone. So let me play a synth, and we're going to pull in a pad here, and I'm going to play it again, both fully turned up and fully turned down and somewhere in between. You can kind of understand what this does. So it does the same exact thing the piano does. When you pull it down or to the left, it removes some of the brighter sounds. So let's start it bright. Now we're going to move it down. Bring it back up. So what you're doing with the synth tone is you're really taking the tone and you're shaping it to be either that warm, like pad sound, or that brighter sound. It really depends on the atmosphere you're going for, right? So that's your synth tone. That's going to change all the different type of synth sounds that you've pulled in to either being brighter or darker. So there are two more synth specific effects that we want to cover, and that is going to be the pad verb and the shimmer. So the pad verb is very much like the piano verb, only it applies to the pad. So it is a reverb that you can use to add, again, some space to a pad. Let's start with that. All right, so just giving it a little bit more washiness, a little bit more space. Now, the next type of reverb is called a shimmer. Now, this is very common in worship, and it's one of those things that you hear, but you don't quite know exactly what it is. And basically, what shimmer is, it's a form of feedback essentially, where it takes the sound and like almost puts it like at a higher frequency, and it repumps it back through. When you hear it, what you're going to hear, listen for the very high highs. It's almost like a very, I don't say screeching, but I would say it's a very bright sound that kind of just sits on top of your pad sound. And it's just going to make it sound very, very full. It's almost like a little string section is coming in at the very top. So let's hear what that sounds like as we add it to the pad sound. All right, so you can just hear that really high shimmery sound. So that is your shimmer. So when we look at the effects, what we're trying to do in worship is we're trying to use them to enhance our traditional standard stock sound. So in a musical context, what does that mean? What that means is that, we can use these effects to give an atmosphere during different times in the set. So I really think a lot around prayer times, or maybe there's a baptism going on. I think in my mind, if I was playing and just, having this really high compressed, like really hard piano the whole time. Right, it's just very like hard and harsh. That's probably not the sound I'm going for. So I can still use the same exact piano, right? But just change it on the fly. If all of a sudden we're transitioning from something that's real high, real up, to now we've got to go right into a very soft moment at the turn of this knob, maybe a turn of this knob, I get a totally different flavor, totally different sound. I don't have to call up another patch or look for another patch or, program another patch. I don't necessarily want to be programming every single patch for every single possible moment. Instead, what I want to be doing is reacting on the fly to the things that are going on stage. So let's just try that transition, right? So let's say we're at this real big moment. All right, so easily, right? I just came from this big, just banging out this piano to boom, right into this quiet, soft space. I didn't have to be fiddling around with other patches, messing around. I just changed a couple knobs and now I've got the sound that I want. So I'm hoping that you guys can see the value in the effects section, in that it is your sound design on the fly tool so that you can put in the atmosphere that you want during your worship set. So thank you guys. See you next time.